all of those will require some additional retraining and some cost of professional development and new policies and procedures throughout that entire piece. One of the things that is the most significant and immediate issue is the discussion between the difference of owner surrenders and owner requests for euthanasia. Because we're an open admission shelter, many people do bring in pets and request euthanasia. At some point in the past, and I don't entirely know when, a decision was made that all owner surrenders would check a box on the form at intake that said that they agreed to an ORE, which is an owner request for euthanasia. That does mean that if the euthanasia is eventually performed, that it would not be considered a shelter decision. That is not calculated according to the national standard. That is a finding in the audit. However, that was also a finding by, we've had a member of our senior leadership team that's been meeting with the senior management over at the shelter to rebuild that team, to facilitate them having discussions about their euthanasia process. And so they did also identify that that was an issue. And the senior leadership member brought it back to me, and I authorized changing it. And the procedures were changed, the form was changed, staff was retrained in early June. And so that structure, but that was before that I knew that this was an audit finding. So I do accept that that was in fact the case. I didn't know that it was an audit finding at the time that we changed that decision in order to make sure that it was clear for people who were coming into the shelter. And it's been confusing for staff, and it will continue to be supported by the senior leadership team, that it's our expectation that it'll be calculated according to the way that the national standard is. It will make the reported euthanasia rate by the shelter look higher, not because I expect them to be euthanizing any more animals, but because they will be reporting it accurately, regardless of what the number is, regardless of what the structural issues are. We have to face them, and we have to figure out how to address them. And that's been difficult with as many things that there are in a shelter that need to be moved forward. There are issues around the way we do behavior assessments. There are issues around the amount of time that we have to spend with animals, and a lot of the things are about efficiencies. There will be lots of things that will be necessary as far as staff retraining, policies and procedures that have to be reworked from start to finish. We have worked with members of our board, made several recommendations to me, as well as some of our external stakeholders, about how we can provide some additional support to the shelter for the next 6 to 7 months to do that. So you all will see some of those things come before you in the next few weeks to make sure that we're moving that forward. All of the models of partnership and operation and the other stakeholders that are engaged, I'm trying to meet with. I intend to just be completely honest about the things that we're seeing and the things that we're working on. It'll take time to get through some of the recommendations that are in this report, and we'll continue to work on them. The shelter is crowded. We take in a lot of animals for the size of the facility, and it's very difficult for the types of animals that we get in to have them get out. But we have to make sure that the staff at the shelter are trained and motivated and understand the sense of urgency that I feel that we should have about moving animals outside of the shelter and returning them, having a live release rate for as many animals as possible, through adoption, through returning animals to their owners, through transfers to other rescues, and all of the other opportunities available at our disposal. And that's the expectation that I have for them. So I find this audit to be fair for the things that I've observed and the conversations that I've had with others, things that I've been reported from the staff. There have been some things that have already been adjusted. There will be more. We created a website in which we will report the completion of audit recommendations on an ongoing basis. And per the council's request, we will also be reporting back to you as well the statistics of the shelter as we continue to make changes and move forward.
What is the status on the selection of a new director?
So I had a panel of 10. We were not successful in selecting a director. I included several members of the board and other external stakeholders, my HR manager. We did a national search. We had several candidates that we went through. There were some candidates that came from other locations with significant history in this space that I would say also had some very problematic pasts in terms of their operations as well. And we felt like that was difficult. We did get a lot of other candidates who had not had the experience in operating a shelter at that level of leadership of our size, who we did feel like were were people with sort of the very much the right heart and sort of the compassionate attitude, but that we were concerned about the size and scale. And so the full panel decided that we would go back out again. And so I'm meeting with my board on Thursday, and we'll finalize again the opportunity for changing out what we were looking for a director to see if we can draw a different pool.
Are you not getting someone because of the pay, or what's the issue?
So pay wasn't particularly the issue. I would say that I think it's a difficult field at this level. Several of the people that we drew were from other national agencies that had been, several of them had been terminated from other agencies for other issues as well. And the entire panel, including several of my board members, said that they felt like it was better to not hire that potentially board director. We are talking about whether or not we could rework the director position to include someone who was more interested in potentially a turnaround opportunity, as opposed to sort of a long-term stable manager, which is what we would predominantly look for. And see if we can word the job description slightly differently to see if we can draw a different pool. It was tough.
Councilman Hart?
The statistics on euthanasia, you were saying that under the previous administration, it sounded like they were suppressing those numbers because you filled out a card and then that card kind of went in the drawer and it was never counted. And a lot of those euthanasia were people, like you say, that surrendered and were forced to check a box whether they wanted their pet to be euthanized or not, but the only way we would accept them back then was for them to check the box. Is that correct?
That is my understanding of what was happening. And I don't know if it was, I don't know how many, because I can't separate at this point who came in and surrendered an animal not for euthanasia and who came in and surrendered an animal for euthanasia. I do know that all of the intake forms and the reporting from the beginning of last month forward will make a distinction between an owner surrender and an owner request for euthanasia.
So like you said, in the future, those
It
numbers
does
will
change.
probably go up until things level out.
The reported rate will go up because it will be accurate.
Okay. And were those pets then taken directly in and put in a certain area, then euthanized the next day, or?
No, actually, they weren't. Most of what I have seen over the course of the last 8.5, 9 months has been that animals were held. And sometimes they were put up for adoption, and many were also given out to rescues, but many animals were held for too long. One of the other findings across the audit is that we do hold animals in the shelter for about twice as long as most other shelters do, which is where the sense of urgency that we've been communicating to staff really needs to come in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Appreciate your honesty and transparency around this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further?
Here is Jenny Agnew, followed by Beth Wasserstrom.
Go ahead, Pat, give mine Wasserstrom.
I'm sorry?
Pass on Wasserstrom.
Then Jenny Agnew, followed by Lynn Gober.
Good evening. I saw you last in April at the special hearing for St. Louis County Animal Care and Control. I'm the third speaker tonight to represent county, and I offer a different perspective than what Spring Schmidt and Ellen Lawrence have, as I'm a volunteer there with boots on the ground, so to speak. So I also thank you for the audit. I look forward to seeing many of the recommendations and considerations implemented. But I'm here to tell you that not much has changed since April. Dogs are still not getting out on a regular basis. And as you know, with the news of this last week, dogs are still being euthanized. People are questioning those decisions for euthanasia. We know that dogs will be euthanized there. I'm not one person who thinks that they can all be saved in that environment. But I do think that many of the dogs who are euthanized are not being assessed correctly. There's a dog that was euthanized today named Cameo. She's a dog who was removed from one of the rooms that volunteers have access to. She had an evaluation, and shortly thereafter she was euthanized. She She was on the rescue list a couple of weeks ago, but not many efforts had been made to move her out of the shelter. Volunteers were unaware of any issues with her. Volunteers had 0 issues with her. So I appreciate that the changes that the audit recommend will take some time. I come from the world of academia where time doesn't matter. Time does matter to these animals. And it mattered to Cameo because today her time was up. So I'm here as a reminder that these are living beings who continue to be affected by the way St. Louis County Animal Care and Control is run. And I guess I'll be back at the next meeting to talk about the next animal that's euthanized. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lynn. Gover, I'm not sure.
Yes, that's right. Going away.
And followed by Bob Mahajan.
First, I'd like to start, I want to thank everyone who cares for these dogs, and I want to thank you for the audit. It is no secret St. Louis County has been under scrutiny for some time. Lately, the death of Thor, a dog brought into county by Kay Lynn. Thor was euthanized 2 weeks after Kay brought him to county. He was labeled aggressive. We have video of Thor. He was not aggressive. He was healthy when he was brought into county. Later to be found with kennel cough, aggressive behavior, and we were told he bit a staff worker. We do not believe this. Spring speaks of change, but this was 1 week ago. I have researched some stats and found, on average, 4 dogs are euthanized every week. This is approximately 208 dogs per year. Spring Schmidt has been quoted as saying, "We are lower than the national average. Can we not do better?" January 2018, 291 dogs were euthanized. When asked if dogs are euthanized for space, this was denied. I don't believe this. I understand the stress the workers are under, so I ask, why not put someone in place with knowledge of shelter dogs and the extreme stress they are under? A friend of mine, Trish McMillan, an animal behaviorist who has spoken throughout the U.S., is coming to St. Louis in August. I can get the information if you request it. She is speaking on aggressive behavior and to tell the difference between fear and real aggression. The cost is $275 per person. Perhaps county could sponsor their employees to attend. I truly believe employees would benefit from this class and Trish's knowledge of shelter dogs. Question, what is the difference between aggression and behavior? What type of behavior warrants a dog to die? Is it stress, diarrhea, kennel cough, fear, age? This is a play on words to hide the truth. Both of these are listed as reasons for euthanasia. They are both the same. St. Louis County Animal Control is under fire and people are not turning a blind eye any longer. ORE, owner requested euthanasia. When someone surrenders a dog, they're encouraged to check this box without knowledge of what it truly is. So many believe their animal will be adopted out. This is not the case. This is another way to cover the mind-blowing numbers of euthanasia in county. To quote Gandhi, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable. The animals, like children, are at your mercy. This makes them our most vulnerable. The previous administration was at fault, but I don't feel the whole blame lies here. Something must change here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.